Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new malicious compliance content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, "We don't pay you to be 2 minutes late. Over the course of a year, it's hundreds of dollars." Then I find out an interesting detail. I've worked at many retail chains, have had many terrible bosses. Here's one story I think I can give up without any repercussions. At a small specific retail store, 5 to 6 years ago at this point, I was confronted by my old boss on a specific event that I was late by 2 minutes. Previous day, he had asked me to come in on my day off and at an earlier time than I normally do. I agreed to come in on my day off and work a shift I am not normally used to. But it's retail, it cannot be that difficult. My old boss asked me to work 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., and I showed up at 7:02 a.m. Which, in my state, there is a 5-minute window for everyone, and this was 100% not a habit of mine at all. I am normally one to show up 5 minutes early every day and wait aside the time clock. I clocked on, and walked to my department with a drink I had already purchased the previous day. As I walked into the department, the manager greeted me then said, "When I schedule you at 7 a.m., I expect you to be in department by 7 a.m. Not a minute later. We can't pay you to clock on, buy something, and then start working. Over the course of a year that adds up to hundreds of dollars of lost labor for one individual." I told my old boss that my drink was from the previous day, and that I just clocked on 2 minutes late. My old boss replied with, "That's not my problem, you need to plan better. You were scheduled at 7 and we are losing cost of labor each minute you are not here. Be in department at scheduled time." Which is not true. I spoke regularly with a payroll employee and she explained to me quite some time prior that the company does not pay you 3 minutes before or after your scheduled time. So if you clock on at 7 a.m., you are not getting paid until 7:03 a.m. If you clock on at 6:57 a.m., you are not getting paid until 7 a.m. Same for when you return from lunch. However, if you clock on at 7:04, after that 3-minute window you begin getting paid immediately that minute. My boss was right, I need to plan better. I asked for a printout of my timestamps going back as far as they had record of and I tallied up each day that I had arrived 3 minutes early, and did not get paid for it. I counted well over 330 minutes within a 3-month span that I was not getting paid for, which ended up being a little over $110. I gave my old boss a copy and said, "You can pay me for these dates where I was in department, on the dot, without getting paid for it." My old boss then replied, "That's not how our company policy works." He then went into detail, to explain to me, exactly what I had already known, and gave him a copy of. Yet my old boss is now recognizing that he's contradicted himself and willingly lied to me. When everything clicked in his head that he's contradicted himself, it was far too obvious because his face went bright red and he started smiling, like he had been caught. My old boss, "Well, you know the policy, we can't pay you for that." Me. "Then I will begin my shift when I am getting paid, not the minute you schedule me. It's not like you're losing labor if you're not even paying the employees that window of time. Schedule me at 7, if you like, but I will not be clocking on until 4 minutes after the scheduled time, as you will not be losing any cost of labor for it, and I will not be losing pay over your personal policy." For about 3 weeks, I clocked on 4 minutes late every day, no matter how early I arrived. I eventually got a warning from the building's HR that it's riding the line and very close to getting a write-up, and down the discipline road. I explained to her the entire story, as she seemingly did not like this manager of mine either. She laughed pretty hard at the whole thing and offered me a department transfer, with a higher pay. She reminded me that my behavior was listed under a category that could get me terminated, and thought the transfer would be a fresh start. Instead, I put in my 2 weeks' notice and thanked her for the wonderful opportunity. The funniest part of all of this, years later I saw my old manager working at a new chain, in a similar position to what he was doing when I worked for him. He smiled, waved. I smiled, waved, continued on. As time went on, I also bumped into the old HR manager, who was working in an entirely different field. I asked her why my old boss left that company. She laughed and said, "He didn't leave, we fired him for time theft." Apparently my old boss would take a lunch, leave the building, and never clock out for it. Next one is titled, "Don't like where I parked my motorcycle? Fine, I'll park it in a parking space." I live in an apartment building with nowhere near enough parking spaces for everybody. There are maybe 100 units total but only about 10 parking spaces. Although it is stated in my contract that I am allowed to park within the building, I would park it in a corner in the parking lot somewhere since motorcycles are small and don't require much space. I thought I'd be nice. But about a month after I moved in, I received a notice that people were filing complaints against my motorcycle, as they were having trouble parking their cars because of where it was. So, I stopped parking it in that corner. And not more than a week later, I received another notice. Same complaint, but different corner. It was no biggie, so I parked it somewhere else, and got another notice. So, I started parking it somewhere that would never get in another car's way. In one of the 10 parking spaces available to 100 units. Next one is titled, "Lazy IT guy asked me to make sure other people had the same problem." A few years back I worked for a small-ish company, approximately 100 people. We had a web service which was notoriously poorly maintained by IT. The service worked on IE, but was buggy on Firefox, Chrome etc. Occasionally when a new version of a browser was released the web service stopped working until IT got around to fixing it. So one day IE releases a new version and it breaks the web service, so I submit a service request to IT. I wait a few hours doing other tasks but eventually get to a point where this problem is literally preventing me from doing my remaining work. So I go down to the IT guy's desk, he's playing games on his phone, and ask him about the issue. He says the issue is not currently high enough priority and it won't be addressed until it becomes a priority task. How do service requests become prioritized? They have to have multiple people report the same issue. He then says, "If you want me to work this issue, make sure someone else has the same problem. It might just be a you issue, not a browser issue." So I go and tell all my coworkers to install the newest version of their browsers to see if an ongoing issue has been fixed. Before long no one can do any work. The web service is down for everyone on the newest versions now. He gets bombarded with service requests and the issue becomes prioritized. I come in the next day and the web service is working properly. Next one is titled, 20 plus years of innocent, malicious compliance. So I am currently visiting my parents and was reminded of some ongoing innocent malicious compliance my brothers and I have been pulling on our mom for 20 plus years. This all started, like I said, 20 plus years ago. My mom was baking some muffins for the family to have for breakfast for the next week. She has mixed everything, put them in the oven, and then set a timer for when they were to be finished. Well, as my mom can do, she got to doing something else down in the basement, far away from the kitchen and the timer, and lost track of time. Now, when she put them in the oven, my oldest brother, 15, and I, 10, was sitting at the kitchen table having a snack. So rightfully, she felt confident that us, being two slightly intelligent human beings, would come find her when the timer went off. Well, this is where things went wrong. Instead of coming to find her, we're just off in our own little worlds and just turned the timer off. As you would suspect, the smell of burnt muffins soon filled the house and she came running. All the while my oblivious brother and I just continue to enjoy our snacks. Dismayed and angry, we got yelled at and told, "You need to always let me know when the timer goes off." We nodded our heads yes to her, but looked at each other and, as only brothers can do, made a silent, unspoken pact to maliciously follow her orders. So for the last 20 plus years, no matter what, we always let her know the timer was going off. No matter where she was, as soon as the timer went off, one or both of us would say, yell, "Timer's going off." If she was in another room, "Timer's going off." If she was in the kitchen, "Timer's going off." If she was actively turning off the timer, "Timer's going off." Just 5 minutes ago in the kitchen with our mom when the timer went off, with a sly smile. Both my brother and I in chorus sang out, "Timer's going off." Next one is titled, "You want me to run the test without making repairs first?" Okay. Okay, so I'm going to do my best to explain my job without giving away the company or making it too technical. Essentially, I work on diesel-powered refrigerators for transportation services. Well, some of these refrigeration units have satellite components that allow the customer to view specific information about the system remotely and change things such as food settings and temperature settings. Well, when units come in for repairs or maintenance, we have to do a test on each one before the end of the day to make sure everything is working properly. It's an automated test, so all I have to do is press a button on the control module and the system will run through its test. So one specific unit came in and I had the lovely task of doing simple maintenance on it. Well, I took one look at this unit and knew it wasn't going to be simple maintenance. This system ruptured a vital gasket that sits between the engine and the compressor. Crusty oil was everywhere. I open the drain plug and there's almost no oil coming out. I'm sort of surprised it made it here while running with basically no oil. Well, I inform my boss about what I've found and he tells another tech to go take a look. I show my coworker what I've found and he just chuckled and says, "Holy shit." So we go back to the boss and tell him it needs a new gasket and the repair will take a little bit. Mostly because this gasket repair is one that I haven't done yet, so it will be a slow one. My boss doesn't like that because the customer needs it tested and released like yesterday. So he tells us to just do the maintenance and test it and we will worry about it later. This bad unit was not the only unit we had that day. We inform him that part of the scheduled maintenance is doing an oil change, which would mean the new oil we put in would just come right back out. We both watched our boss sit and think about the situation for a second before he told us to just go ahead and do the maintenance and test. I spoke up and asked him if he's sure he wants us to do that. He seemed to get frustrated with me before sternly telling me that he's sure. "Sure thing, boss. I bet you can guess where this is going now." I completed the maintenance and proceeded with the test. We don't sit and watch the unit because the test takes 20 minutes or so. But I patiently waited nearby within earshot but not within eyesight. Within 10 minutes I heard a loud knocking coming from the engine. By the time I got up to the unit, the engine threw a rod and obliterated itself. So I tell my boss what happened and he just sits there for a second before going to inform the customer. Myself and my co-workers were not tasked with replacing the engine and we never really knew how the conversation went, but we did hear that my boss was called into the director's office for an important discussion. Maybe he should have listened to his techs. Next one is titled, "Leave you alone and run the machines?" With pleasure. I work at a CNC machine shop and an order comes in for a part that needs repeated cuts with the part resting at a 45-degree angle relative to the cutting tool. This type of thing is normal for us, but this material was particularly hard on tooling. I suggest to the big boss that we take smaller cuts, but hey, what the duck do I know, right? Not fast enough, he says. It'll cut our profit margin, he says. Halfway through the first part the mill starts making this atrocious screeching noise, caused by vibration in the workpiece. We're talking jet engine levels of noise here. Shake the ducking earth levels of bad noise. I jam the feed hold button and walk into the office. Boss man flicks his noise-canceling headphones to one side. Why can't I hear the machine cutting? I explain that the cutter is screeching and we need to either redesign the fixture, the thing that holds what you're cutting, or lighten the cutting depth so we don't launch the machine and half of the shop into a low Earth orbit. Just lower the feed rate and keep going. I know that this isn't the problem, but hey, they're not my $100 cutters. Back to machine I go, lower the feed override and hit start. Boom crash, 100 Washingtons down the toilet, shards of carbide everywhere. So I go back to the office. Didn't work. I tell him, we gotta change. He cuts me off mid-sentence. Look, he says, I'm busy, making money, make it work without changing the fixture. I don't want to see you again. Just as I'm about to ask if he's sure, he pops his headphone back on and resumes his, apparently, very profitable activities. So back to production I go. I finished all 40 parts, with the feed rate dutifully turned down with the max depth of cut. I broke a cutter every part or so, and by the end of the day $4,000 worth of tooling was permanently destroyed. The best part? Each of the parts was only worth $40, and my boss bought the material. The next day he's humming and hawing looking at the scrap carbide bin, which is just full the tippy ducking top. What the hell happened here? I just shrugged. Sorry, boss, someone told me I wasn't to bother you, seeing as how you were making so much money. I've never seen someone come close to blowing steam out of their ears. Last one is titled, "Reading this post will take longer than this short but satisfying MC." In the United States there is a massive chain of convenience stores called 7-Eleven. These stores have self-serve soda fountains where the drinks are called Gulp, Big Gulp, Super Big Gulp, etc. Customers can bring in their own reusable cups of the same size and volume to reduce waste, by not using a new disposable cup every time they get a soda. Customers also pay a discounted price since the store is not selling a new cup. This is the required understanding to appreciate this minor MC. In college I lived right next door to a 7-Eleven, so I was there almost every day. I had my refillable cup and filled it up with my regular beverage of choice. I noticed that their super big gulps, which are 44 ounces in size, were on sale for 79 cents. My refill cup was exactly that size. Normally the super big gulps cost $1.49, but with a refill cup they were only 99 cents. Quick side note. The person behind the counter today is not the usual cashier type. This is one of the owners of the franchised location. She's in there occasionally and she is very cool and businesslike in her demeanor. She doesn't smile and joke with the customers like most of the employees. I've heard her chastise her employees for no good reason. I head up to the counter to pay for my soda, and the boss lady rings me up for 99 cents, the cost of the refill. I said, laughingly, "Hey, wait, the super big gulps are on sale for 79 cents. She replies very brusquely, "The price for the super big gulp is 79 cents. You have a refill, which is 99 cents. Your total is $1.07, with sales tax." And she holds out her hand expectantly. I was somewhat joking when I commented about the 79 cents, because like I said, I'm in there all the time, and it's only 20 cents we're talking about here. But her demeanor and curt reply rubbed me exactly the wrong way. I said, "You're telling me you're going to charge me 20 cents extra to use my own cup? Hold on 1 second." I leave my cup on the counter and trot the 20 feet to the soda fountain to grab a new cup, and hustle back to the counter. Mind you, there are a couple people waiting in line behind me, so I'm hurrying, but I also know I'm being a complete pain in the ass. I take the lid off of my cup filled with soda, and pour all of the soda into the new cup. She deletes the 99 cents on the cash register and rings me up for 79 cents. I pay her with a $1 bill and get my change. I said, "We're all done here, right?" And standing at the counter, I pour the soda from the new cup back into my refill cup. She says, "Oh, I'll take that for you," and holds out her hand for the now used cup. I said, "Oh, yeah, you can claim credit for the damaged cup, right?" "No thanks, I'll keep it." And out the door I went. I know it's the most petty MC, but it was fun to do. I'm sure that she's like that with her employees, and there's absolutely nothing they can do in reply. I felt like I was giving her a hard time in their honor. Thanks for listening.